Oh, blooming hell, he's blooming you, Jim. I think he might eat me. I better swim away. Well, Marty's left me to do this solo, so I guess it's just me. So, welcome back to another video, everybody. And today I'm going to actually cover something that's a bit outside my realm. This big fella here, that's a pliosaur. Now, for a lot of you, you probably actually have seen a pliosaur before, but let me break down what they are for you. So, pliosaurs are marine reptiles from the Mesozoic era, so they actually lived around the same time as the dinosaurs. They're actually classed within the superorder of Sauropterygia, which means lizard flipper, and this means they're closely related to a lot of other marine reptiles from the Mesozoic that had flippers. This includes the Plesiosaurs, which were the Loch Ness Monster type marine reptiles that lived at the same time as pliosaurs. In fact, they're classified within Plesiosauria, which means they are each other's closest relatives, so these originated from the same common ancestor. So, pliosaurs seem to have appeared around the late Triassic, maybe even the early Jurassic, and existed up until the early late Cretaceous period. That's around about 201 to 90 million years ago, so they had a pretty good run actually. Now, some of the earliest possible pliosaur relatives are actually the Romaleosaurs, which are a group of sort of medium-necked, medium-headed plesiosaurs. Some of these animals could be up to 10 meters in length, so they were already starting out to be quite big and ferocious animals. Now, Romaleosaurus is probably the most famous Romaleosaurid, and even better, it's from Yorkshire. Beautiful. Let's have a cup of tea together, eh, pal? Eh? Although the Romaleosaurus were quite impressive animals, being up to 10 meters long in some specimens, they weren't the real pliosaurs. The real pliosaurs started showing up around about 160 million years ago during the late Jurassic. And the UK is actually a hotspot for some of the biggest and most well-studied pliosaurs in the world, including this fella, walking with dinosaurs, Liopleurodon. And unfortunately, the walking with dinosaurs, Liopleurodon, yeah, it didn't get as big as it got, guys. I'm sorry, I know I've broken so many dreams. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Wait, you already knew that? Oh, sugar. I guess I'm a bit late to the party then. Ooh, embarrassing. So yeah, you had animals like Liopleurodon, which was about a 7 meter long pliosaur, and was quite famous for its very toothy appearance in Walking with Dinosaurs back in 1999. But not all pliosaurs were these short-necked, powerful animals. You actually had some specialising pliosaurs, such as Pliosaur. This is a pliosaur that lived at the same time and same place as Liopleurodon in Oxford, England. Based on this animal having a bit more of a slender snout than its other larger cousins, it's possible that Pliosaur was a specialist of belemnites and squid though around the time of the Jurassic. You also had the one, the only Pliosaurus, which was possibly up to 15 meters in length based on recent studies. And Pliosaurus, to our knowledge, at the moment is probably one of the most speciose pliosaurs in existence. At the moment, there's 6, maybe 7 species that are accepted within the genus of Pliosaurus, but there's still a few that are actually in dispute at the moment. Now, one of the most famous Pliosaurus species is actually not from the UK, it's from Norway, and this is Pliosaurus funki, better known as Predator X. That is a pretty cool name, but I mean, Thalassotitan. Thalassotitan better. No, I'm not biased, shut up, I'm not. But the UK also has some pretty famous pliosaurs, including the Dorchester skull, or the Weymouth Bay skull, which is known as Pliosaurus keveni. And this is quite a well-studied specimen as well, so we've got a lot of research in terms of Pliosaurus in the UK. What is he doing? He's right daft him. It's a bit strange. I've just realised that's me. Yeah, I went to see it in March of this year, and truly, it's an awesome sight to see in person. It's huge. But anyways, with all that explained, I want to talk about this guy. Whew. Now, for those who don't know, this is the skull of C. rex, a giant pliosaur skull that was recovered from the Dorset coast just 2 years ago. For a very long time, this skull was actually prepared and studied in secret until New Year's Day of 2024. The skull and the science behind it was featured in a 2024 documentary known as Attenborough and the Giant Sea Monster. And if you haven't seen this documentary, please go and watch it. It's honestly one of the best paleontological documentaries I've seen in a while. There's so much footage and detail behind this discovery, it is absolutely amazing. So the discovery of this skull actually starts with Philip Jacobs, who is an amateur fossil collector, and he actually came across the end of the snout of this pliosaur. At first he thought it was a piece of wood, and then he realised, no, those are interlocking teeth. And luckily, he had the wherewithal to actually recognise that this could be scientifically important. So he contacted his local museum, which actually happened to be the Etches Collection. So the Etches Collection is a museum that's based in Kimmeridge, Dorset, and is run by this fellow up here, Steve Etches. Now, who is Steve Etches, you're saying? So, believe it or not, Steve Etches used to be a plumber. Yeah, used to be a plumber, this fella here. But over about 40 years of actually reading up on paleontology, collecting a lot of local fossils, and learning about the local rock around his area, he actually became one of the most prolific local paleontologists in Dorset. And, with a little help, he set up his own museum. And I've been to the collection once, and I'm planning to go back to the collection in 2 weeks to actually see the Pliosaur skull. But it is a fantastic collection. If you haven't been there, please do go down and have a look. So after Jacobs initially reported the skull, Steve got a team of other paleontologists and workers to go and get the skull from the cliffside. And these are details that are in the documentary, but they actually had to abseil down the cliff to get into a cave to get to the skull. And it was quite an ordeal. I mean, getting the skull from the cliffside into a gantry to pull it up onto the cliffside and then get it back to the museum. It was a lot of hard work, and Steve says it's probably one of the most physically demanding jobs he's ever actually done in terms of paleontology. I'm just giving a brief, but there's a lot more details on the Etches Collection Museum YouTube channel, so please do go and watch those videos. They're absolutely brilliant and really insightful into the discovery of this skull. Now, even though it was very difficult to get the skull out of the cliff, and the skull itself was very cracked and needed a lot of restoration and prep, it came out absolutely magnificently. I mean, a little funny detail about the skull is actually they found a mouse nest in it, and so I guess you could call that a Mickey Mouse house. Yeah, I know, that was awful. I'm in pain. I'm in a lot of pain right now from that. I'm really sorry. Marty would have found it funny. If Marty was here. I don't know where he's gone. Apart from the mouse nest, when they actually sieved the matrix, they actually found some shark's teeth in the matrix, so some sharks were probably scavenging on the Pliosaur after it died. There was also some little juvenile bivalves that seemed to have encrusted onto the skull, and that was it in terms of epifaunal organisms that had sort of encrusted themselves onto the skull. There was nothing else, really. Now, in the documentary, they actually stressed that this skull is most likely a new species, and Steve believes this as well. There's a few features that actually set this skull apart from other pliosaurs. Now, while it's loosely termed in some of the YouTube videos, there does seem to be two tooth morphologies in the jaws. The teeth themselves don't really change that much in size across the tooth series. And surprisingly, the last tooth is actually behind the eye, which is actually a bit unusual for a lot of pliosaurs. Now, Steve does a lot of comparison with the Dorchester or Weymouth Bay pliosaur skull, Pliosaurus kevinii, the one that I saw in the museum, and he actually says that the crest on the back of the head of this new pliosaur is larger than that skull's crest. And what's just as interesting is that the pliosaur that he has actually dates to around about 5 million years later than the Pliosaurus kevinii specimen. In one of the YouTube videos, Steve actually notes that a colleague of his, Judith, actually suggests that this specimen is a subadult. This thing was still growing. It was getting big. Oh, wow. Oh, that's scary. So, what's my opinion on the C-Rex pliosaur skull? Well, for one, we actually know that there is actually the body of the pliosaur still in the cliff face that is needed to be recovered. And yes, I do believe it's actually a new species of pliosaur. However, in my opinion, based on my little knowledge on pliosaurs, I think this is going to be a new species of the genus Pliosaurus. And I think when the research does come out on this particular animal, that it's going to be very, very important for helping us understand Pliosaurus as a genus. Because at the moment, Pliosaurus could be considered a wastebasket taxon because we're not entirely sure whether all the species of Pliosaurus in there should be there. So I believe this specimen is going to really help us out. But apart from that, this is a once-in-a-lifetime discovery and is probably one of the best preserved fossils in the UK. And just goes to show how important it is to keep looking and keep looking and keep looking for those next big things. Alright guys, hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you later. Ta-da.